The storm was a monster, clawing at the windows, and that's when I heard it. A faint thud against the front door, almost lost in the roar of the thunder. I opened it to a nightmare. A pregnant woman, soaked and bleeding, lay collapsed on my doorstep. Rainwater mixed with the dark stains spreading from beneath her, pooling around her as she clutched her belly. Her eyes were wide with a terror that cut right through me. "Please, Dad. They're coming," she gasped, her voice ragged. Her cold fingers fumbled to press something small and hard into my hand. "A USB drive. Don't trust anyone," she whispered, her gaze intense. "Especially not your wife." My heart stopped. My wife? Elena? Elena. Before I could even process that, she delivered the final blow, 3 words that turned my blood to ice. Project Phoenix lives. How? How could this complete stranger know about Project Phoenix? It was a ghost, a classified government project I'd worked on 5 years ago. It was the project that officially never existed. The one that got my partner, David, killed. My mind was reeling as I fumbled for my phone to dial 911. Just then, footsteps on the stairs. It was Elena. "Michael, what's going?" She stopped dead at the top of the stairs, her hand flying to her mouth when she saw the woman on her porch. Her face, usually so warm and full of life, went completely pale. "Oh my God." The woman's eyes, clouded with pain, found Elena's. A single, venomous word escaped her lips. "Traitor." And then, silence. The wail of sirens grew louder, and in a blur of paramedics and flashing lights, she was gone. But the USB drive in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole straight through to my skin. Later that night, with Elena sleeping soundly beside me, the silence of the house was more deafening than the storm had been. I couldn't shake the woman's words. "Don't trust your wife." I crept out of bed and went to my study. With trembling hands, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. What I found made my stomach clench. First, detailed blueprints of our house, every room, every entry point, every blind spot. Then, photos of me, candid shots, taken over the past month. Me at the grocery store, me jogging in the park, me sitting right here in my study. Someone had been watching my every move. Then I saw a document titled Termination Protocol, and right underneath it was my name. Dr. Michael Evans. But the most chilling file was the last one. A video. The timestamp was the day my partner David died. The grainy footage showed the rooftop of our old office building. I saw a figure, then another. They were arguing. Then, a sudden, violent shove. I watched in horror as a body tumbled over the edge. The camera zoomed in on the person left standing on the roof. The face was unmistakable. It was Elena. My world shattered in that moment. The woman I loved. The woman carrying our child. A killer. I felt sick. The next morning, I couldn't even look at her as she made coffee. I finally just put the laptop on the kitchen table and played the video. The sob that ripped from her throat was gut-wrenching. She collapsed into a chair, her face buried in her hands. "I was forced to, Michael," she cried. "They threatened you. They threatened our family. I had to work with them, but I swear, I never hurt David. That video is a fake. They're framing me." She claimed the pregnant woman was a deep-cover operative named Sarah, part of a rogue CIA faction trying to weaponize Project Phoenix. She said Sarah was a dangerous fanatic and that the USB drive contained disinformation designed to turn me against her. She pleaded with me, her eyes red and swollen. "They're trying to tear us apart. Michael, you have to believe me." Primera, how unted. God, I wanted to believe her more than anything. But as she spoke, a strange thought snagged in my mind. The bathroom trash. Just last week, Elena had ecstatically shown me a positive pregnancy test. We'd celebrated, but the other day, when I took out the trash, I saw the box, and next to it, 2 more use tests. I'd thought it was strange. But now, after she left for work, I went to the bathroom and emptied the small trash can. There they were. 3 tests. I looked closer. Every single one was negative. Why would my wife fake a pregnancy? What did any of this have to do with a woman bleeding on our doorstep, or a 5-year-old ghost project? My questions were answered sooner than I expected. 2 men in crisp black suits walked into my office that afternoon. They were calm, professional, and utterly menacing. They flashed CIA badges and demanded the USB drive. But something was wrong. I'm a details guy. It's my nature. The font on the badges was slightly off. The eagle on the seal, its head was facing the wrong way. These weren't CIA. They were they Sarah had warned me about. The people Elena claimed she was being forced to work for. They didn't give me a choice. Dr. Evans, you're coming with us. As they escorted me out of my own building, past my bewildered colleagues, the terrifying truth clicked into place like a series of tumblers in a lock. Elena had been lying about everything. The pregnancy was a lie. A tool to manipulate me. Her story about being a victim was a lie. Her entire identity might be a lie. I was trapped. Caught between Sarah, the mysterious pregnant woman who knew my deepest secrets, and Elena, the wife who was a complete stranger. One of them was trying to save me. The other wanted me dead. The black sedan pulled away from the curb, and the man beside me offered a cold, thin smile. Don't worry, Dr. Evans. We're just taking you to meet the real director of Project Phoenix. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken threat, as we merged into traffic, heading towards the airport. I looked at the city flashing by, maybe for the last time. I didn't know who the real director was, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't be getting on any plane alive. My only hope was the fake pregnancy, the one loose thread I could pull. I had to figure out why Elena had lied about that, because I knew, without a doubt, that the answer was the key to my survival. The drive was a blur, not of scenery, but of confusion. The familiar route to the airport, the one I'd mentally rehearsed for my escape, never materialized. Instead, the car descended into the sterile, concrete belly of an underground parking garage. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew this place. The sleek, imposing tower above us was the headquarters of Ether Corporation, the very defense contractor that had once funded and then abruptly canceled. Project Phoenix, the man beside me, a silent statue until now, finally spoke as the elevator began its silent, swift ascent. Welcome back, Dr. Evans, he said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. You've been missed. The words hung in the air, a chillingly polite threat. The elevator doors slid open, not into a lobby, but directly into a sprawling penthouse office. The view of the city was breathtaking, but I couldn't appreciate it. My eyes were fixed on the man sitting behind a colossal glass desk, Marcus Dornet, the CEO of Ether, the man who, 5 years ago, had personally pulled the plug on my life's work. Michael, he smiled, but it was a predator's smile. All teeth and no warmth. It never reached his cold, calculating eyes. I understand you've had an interesting morning. He gestured lazily towards a large monitor on the wall. The screen flickered to life, showing live footage from a hospital room. It was Sarah, the pregnant woman from my doorstep, now unconscious, in a bed, a web of wires and tubes connecting her to blinking machines. She's stable, for now, Thorne continued, his tone casual. But we need to know what she told you. I don't know anything, I managed, my voice hoarse. She collapsed at my door. I called an ambulance. That's it. That's the whole story. Thorne's thin smile vanished. Don't play dumb, Michael. It doesn't suit you. Sarah was our top operative. Our best, until she decided to go rogue. She stole something from us. Something very valuable, and we have every reason to believe she passed it to you. He tapped a key on his desk, and the monitor switched feeds. It was security footage from my own front porch. There it was, clear as day. Sarah, just before collapsing, her hand moving with practiced speed, slipping something small and dark into my jacket pocket. The USB drive. The one I'd found and hidden in my safe back home. "Where is it, Michael?" Thorne's voice dropped to a quiet, menacing whisper. "The future of national security depends on it." But as he spoke, a sense of deep unease washed over me. The timing, the convenience, the perfect setup, it was all too neat. A puzzle piece clicked into place, a horrifying realization dawning. My gaze fell to his wrists. He was wearing a distinctive pair of cufflinks, a design I'd seen before. I'd seen them in the grainy video of David's death, on the man who pushed him. "You killed David," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. "You pushed him off that roof." Thorne's expression remained unnervingly placid. "David understood too much, just like you're beginning to." On his cue, his two guards started moving toward me. But adrenaline is a powerful thing. I was faster. My eyes darted around the room and landed on an ancient ceremonial dagger displayed on Thorne's desk. A gaudy paperweight he'd once boasted about during the Project Phoenix days. "Primera smash at it. Not as a weapon against them, but as a tool." In one fluid motion, I spun and smashed the heavy hilt against the panoramic window behind me. "Don't be stupid, Michael," Thorne shouted, his composure finally cracking. "There's nowhere to run." He was wrong. He'd forgotten how much time I'd spent in this building, how intimately I knew its guts from all those late nights working on the project. As I scrambled through the shattered glass onto the narrow maintenance ledge, a memory surfaced. A joke between David and me about an emergency escape route. 5 floors down, across a terrifyingly wide gap, was the roof of the adjacent building. A jump we'd calculated as theoretically possible, but suicidally insane to actually attempt. Thorne's men were on the ledge now, their footsteps closing in. I had a choice: certain death if I stayed, or probable death if I jumped. I chose the leap of faith. I pushed off, launching myself into the open air. The impact with the gravel roof knocked the wind out of me, but I'd made it. I was alive. As I gasped for air and scrambled to my feet, the sharp crack of gunshots echoed from Thorne's office. They weren't trying to capture me anymore. I found my way to the street, and, using the emergency hot wiring techniques David had once taught me as a party trick, I stole a car. Driving with no destination, my mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Project Phoenix wasn't just a weapons system. It was something far bigger, something worth killing over. Sarah knew. Elena knew. And now Thorne thought I did, too. My phone buzzed, shattering the silence. "Elena." I ignored it, letting the call go to voicemail. A moment later, I listened to her message. Her voice was strained, desperate. "Michael, wherever you are, come home. Please, I can explain everything. I'm pregnant with our child. That part was real. The tests, they were false negatives. Please, Michael, just let me protect you." Could I trust her? The woman I loved, my partner for 10 years, had been weaving a web of lies around me. But there was a tremor in her voice, a note of genuine fear that resonated with my own. Or was that just what I desperately wanted to believe? My world had been turned upside down, and the only person who might have answers was the one I trusted least. Scene opens with the sound of a car engine revving, tires screeching slightly, and a sense of urgency. I had to know the truth, and only one person had the answers. "Sarah." My heart hammered against my ribs as I drove to the hospital, every shadow looking like one of Thorne's agents. I couldn't risk being seen, so I snuck through back entrances, my footsteps echoing in deserted service hallways and the hum of a rusty service elevator my only companion. Finally, I found her room. Pushing the door open just enough to peek inside, I saw her, awake and alone, the pale moonlight casting long shadows across her bed. I slipped inside, locking the door behind me with a soft click. Her head turned, and her eyes widened. They told me you died in the jump," she whispered, her voice fragile but steady. "Apparently not," I said, my own voice tight. I walked closer to her bed. "Sarah, enough games. Start talking. What is Project Phoenix, really?" She let out a long, shaky breath, her gaze fixed on something far away. It's not a weapon, Michael. It's a vaccine. My mind reeled. A vaccine. It's a cure, she continued, for a plague that Ether Corporation created and plans to release. They create the disease, and then they sell the cure to the highest bidders. Governments, billionaires, whoever can pay. The world tilted on its axis. All those years, all the late nights in the lab, the complex equations, the breakthrough research. The theoretical models we celebrated. We weren't building weapons to protect people. We were building the world's most valuable commodity, survival itself. We were crafting the lock and the key, all for profit. Elena. ... I started, my voice barely a whisper. Elena works for them, Sarah confirmed, her eyes meeting mine. She was assigned to monitor you, to keep you on track with Project Phoenix. But she fell in love with you, Michael. That part wasn't an act. That's why she's been trying to protect you, to get you away from all this. My head was spinning. Elena, my Elena, a corporate spy. But she loved me. It didn't make sense. Then, why? Why fake the pregnancy tests? Sarah's brow furrowed in genuine confusion. She didn't. Michael, the pregnancy is real. I've seen the medical reports myself. Before I could even begin to process the weight of that revelation that I was going to be a father, the hospital room door didn't just open. It exploded inward. Splinters of wood flew across the room. Standing in the doorway were Thorne's men. Armed and ready in wheat Tim was Elena. A gun held firmly in her hand. I'm sorry, Michael, she said, tears glistening in her eyes, streaming down her cheeks. But you should have come home when I asked you to. My instincts took over. As they moved in to grab me, I made a split-second choice. I lunged for Sarah's forepole, the metal cooled in my hand, and swung it with all my might at the large window. The glass shattered, and instantly, the piercing wail of the building's emergency alarms filled the air. Chaos erupted, people shouting, alarms. Blaring it was the perfect cover. I saw my chance and bolted for the now splintered doorway. But as my hand reached for the frame, Elena's voice cut through the noise, stopping me cold. Michael, wait. I'm on your side. This was the only way to get you out. I turned, confused, and she gestured frantically toward the bed. My eyes followed her point, and my blood ran cold. Sarah, the weak, injured woman I came to save, was now sitting up, holding a gun she'd pulled from under a pillow, and it was pointed directly at my heart. Her face was no longer frail, but alert, cold, and dangerous. Sorry, Michael, Sarah said, a chilling smile playing on her lips. But the baby I'm carrying, it's Thorne's. And you just became expendable. 2 women, 2 completely different stories, and standing there, caught between 2 guns. I'd absolutely no idea who to believe anymore. The screaming hospital alarms were our only chance. As Thorne's men flinched, just for a second, I knew it was now or never. I grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her into the chaos of the hallway. Run! I yelled, and thank God, she did. We smashed through the stairwell door, just as gunshots rang out behind us. I could hear Sarah's voice, full of rage, screaming after us. You're dead, heavens. Both of you. We didn't stop, didn't even look back. Just kept pounding down flight after flight of stairs until we hit the hospital basement. Elena, her breath coming in ragged gasps, pulled me into a cramped medical supply closet. We have about 90 seconds, she whispered, wedging her body against the door. Before they lock this whole place down. She turned to me, her eyes desperate. Michael, everything I told you was a lie, but my feelings for you were never part of that lie. I kept my voice low, my heart still hammering against my ribs. Start talking. And this time, I want the truth. And then, the horrifying reality came spilling out. Ether Corporation had created a synthetic virus called Project Chimera and Project Phoenix. the project I'd been a part of. That was the vaccine. But the real bombshell was Sarah. She wasn't carrying Thorn's baby. She was carrying the virus itself, genetically engineered into her unborn child, creating the first human vector. The baby will be born with immunity, Elena explained, her voice trembling, but it will carry and spread the virus through its bodily fluids. My stomach twisted into a knot. They're planning to use Sarah as patient zero in major cities all over the world. Primera ha detto no. And you? What's your role in this? I was assigned to monitor you. That part was true, but when I found out what they were really doing, I went to the FBI. I've been working undercover for 6 months, gathering evidence. She pulled back her sleeve, revealing a tiny device implanted in her wrist. An FBI tracking beacon. My handler was killed last week. That's when I knew they were onto me. All the confusing pieces started clicking into place. The fake pregnancy tests, Primera ASCIP, part of my cover, she confirmed. I needed a reason to avoid Ether's medical scans. They would have detected this. She tapped her wrist. But Michael, I really am pregnant. A doctor confirmed it yesterday. That part, I never lied about that. Outside our hiding spot, we heard the heavy thud of boots running past. We held our breath, staying completely silent until the sounds faded away. We need to get to the FBI field office, Elena said, her voice firming up. I have enough evidence to bring down Ether for good, but I have to get it to the right people. She led me through a maze of damp, dark maintenance tunnels beneath the hospital. As we moved, she filled in the final gaps. David, my old friend, had discovered the truth about Project Chimera, and that's why he was murdered. That video, she said, the one of me pushing him, it was CGI. Thorn had it made as insurance, just in case I turned on him. We finally emerged into an alley 2 blocks away, blinking in the daylight. Just then, Elena's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Her face went pale as she read it. Safe house compromised. Asset extraction failed. Protocol Zulu initiated. She looked at me, her eyes wide with terror. They've activated the termination protocol. They're going to kill Sarah and destroy all the evidence. We have to get to her first, I said, my mind racing. She's the only one who can testify about the virus. Elena shook her head frantically. It's too dangerous. Mike, they'll be expecting us to go back for her. Then we have to think like Thorn, I insisted. Where would he take her? Before we could even begin to formulate a plan, a black van screeched to a halt at the alley entrance. Men in full tactical gear swarmed us, moving with terrifying speed. But these weren't Thorn's men. I saw the FBI insignia on their equipment. Elena Petrov, the lead agent, said, I'm Agent Miller. We're here to extract you. Elena sagged with relief. Thank God, she breathed. This is my husband, Michael Evans. He's clean. But something felt off. Something was terribly wrong. They were too perfectly timed, too conveniently placed. As they moved to escort us to the van, I saw the small details, the incorrect font on the badges, the specific model of their gear. It was the same as Thorn's men. These weren't the FBI. They were Ether operatives in disguise. I grabbed Elena's arm, but it was too late. One of the men jabbed her with a needle, and she collapsed into my arms, unconscious. The lead operative, the man calling himself Miller, gave me a cold smile. Don't worry, Dr. Evan. We're just taking you to witness the birth of a new world order. They forced us into the van. I held Elena's limp form, my mind racing, desperately searching for a way out, but there was none. And in that moment, a chilling thought hit me. I was exactly where I needed to be, heading straight into the heart of Ether's operation. I had finally realized the truth. I had underestimated Thorn. I was walking into the lion's den. But sometimes, the most dangerous place is the only place you can win. The van sped toward Ether's main research facility, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that once we went through those doors, we might never come out alive. And now, Now I was about to pay the price. Suspenseful. Slightly echoing intro music fades into the background. The journey didn't end where I thought it would. Instead of the polished glass and steel of Ether's main campus, the van deposited us at a ghost of a decommissioned military base, 30 miles from the nearest streetlight. From the surface, it was all rust and decay, a forgotten relic of a bygone era. But beneath the cracked asphalt and crumbling concrete, another world existed. An elevator descended into the earth, opening into a state-of-the-art medical facility that was light years ahead of anything I'd ever built. My own Project Phoenix lab, my pride and joy, suddenly felt like a child's chemistry set. The sterile, white corridor swallowed us whole. They pulled Elena away from me, her frantic protests swallowed by a closing metal door. I was herded down a different hallway, my own objections ignored, until I was pushed into a sterile observation room. My world narrowed to the single, massive pane of glass that separated me from the room beyond. And there she was. Sarah. She was lying on a medical bed. A constellation of sophisticated scanning devices aimed at her exposed, pregnant belly. Standing beside a bank of monitors was Marcus Thorne. His face was a mask of clinical detachment, his eyes fixed on the data flowing across the screens. "Welcome, Michael." Thorne's voice was calm, almost conversational, but it carried a chilling authority. He didn't even bother to turn around. "You're just in time for the grand finale, the culmination of 5 long years of work." My gaze was drawn to the largest monitor, the one displaying the ultrasound. I saw the unmistakable shape of a baby. But it wasn't right. Something was terribly wrong. All throughout its tiny, developing body, strange, glowing markers pulsed with an unnatural light. A cold dread began to creep up my spine. What have you done?" The words came out as a whisper, strangled by the horror rising in my throat. Thorne finally turned from the screens, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Perfected nature," he said, his voice as smooth as polished steel. "That child you see is carrying a modified version of the Chimera virus." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "It's completely harmless to him. Of course, he'll be a carrier for his entire life, perfectly healthy." My mind relayed, trying to process the implications. "A carrier, every tear he cries," Thorne continued, his voice taking on an almost reverent tone. "Every drop of saliva, every single breath he takes will spread the virus to anyone and everyone around him." The full, monstrous weight of his plan crashed down on me, and I felt physically sick. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. "You're using an innocent child," I stammered, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You're turning a baby into a biological weapon?" Thorne actually had the audacity to look offended. "Not a weapon, Michael. A solution." He gestured grandly at the screens. "The beauty of this new strain is its precision. The virus only affects those with specific genetic markers. We can target entire ethnic groups, political dissidents, even specific family bloodlines. Imagine it the most precise, most elegant form of population control ever conceived." He took a step closer to the glass, his eyes gleaming with a fanatical, terrifying pride. "And your Project Phoenix research," he said, "your brilliant work, made it all possible. The vaccine you so painstakingly developed. It's not a cure, Michael. It's the key. It ensures that only the chosen, only our asterisk people, will survive the culling." The floor fell out from under me. It was like being struck by lightning. Every late night in the lab, every painstaking experiment, every breakthrough I had celebrated with my team, every patent I'd proudly filed, it was all a lie. I hadn't been building a shield to protect humanity. I had been forging the sword that would destroy it. I wasn't an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. I was the architect of this nightmare. Just then, a voice cut through my spiraling dread. "They're inducing labor," one of the doctors in the other room announced, his voice devoid of any emotion. In an instant, the clinical quiet was shattered. Medical staff swarmed around Sarah's bed. Her scream tore through the air, a raw, primal sound of pain and terror that ripped through my soul. Thorne just watched, his expression unchanged, like a scientist observing a predictable reaction in a petri dish. A tidal wave of fury surged through me. Stop this, I roared, hammering my fists against the unyielding glass. You can't do this. Stop! The reinforced pain didn't even shudder. Thorn turned to me, and a slow, triumphant smile spread across his face. It was the smile of a god admiring his creation. It's already done, Michael, he said, his voice dripping with finality. The child will be born within the hour, and with his first breath, the new world begins. But his moment of victory was cut short. The facility's lights flickered violently, then went out, plunging us into momentary darkness before emergency strobes began to flash. A cacophony of alarms blared through the underground complex, a piercing, chaotic symphony of warning. Thorn's smile vanished instantly, replaced by a scowl of pure fury. He whipped out his cum device, barking into it. What's happening? Report. What is going on down there? The new world would have to wait. Someone, somewhere, had just decided to crash the party. Elena's voice cut through the chaos, clear and strong over the intercom. It's over, Marcus. I've released the containment breach protocol. Every door in this facility is now sealed, including yours. I looked through the observation window, and my world tilted. Elena was standing there, not as a captive, but with a team of real FBI agents, their weapons aimed squarely at Thorn's security. All this time, she'd been playing her own game. The pregnancy was never fake. Elena's voice echoed, cold and determined, but my loyalty to you was. I've been working with the FBI since the day I learned what Project Chimera really was. Thorn's men went for their guns. A fatal mistake. The FBI agents were a blur of motion, disarming and securing the room in seconds. But Thorn ... Thorn wasn't one to accept defeat. He just smiled that chilling smile of his and pressed a button on his watch. Instantly, heavy metal shutters slammed down, sealing every exit, every window. If I'm going down, he said, his voice eerily calm. We all are. The self-destruct sequence has been activated. We have 15 minutes before this entire facility is sterilized. A scream from the medical bay cut through the sudden silence. It was Sarah, but this time, it wasn't pain. It was pure terror. The baby's coming. Now, the room erupted. Agents desperately tried to override the lockdown. Medical staff, panicking, scrambled around Sarah. It was a nightmare. Through the madness, Elena managed to force open the observation room door. Michael, we have to get to the emergency exit. Now. But I couldn't move. My eyes were locked on Sarah, on the tiny life about to be born into this hell. We can't leave them. Betrayal by. The whole place is going to blow, one of the agents shouted, trying to pull me away. Thorn just laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You see, Michael, even now, you want to be the hero. But some people aren't worth saving. He was wrong. In that moment, a choice crystallized in my mind. While everyone else stampeded towards the faint hope of an exit, I turned and ran the other way straight. Toward the medical bay. Primera. Dito try. I had to save that innocent child from the monster I'd helped create. By the time I got there, the room was empty. They'd all fled. Sarah was alone on the bed, her body racked with labor, her eyes wide with fear. Get out of here, she screamed at me, her voice hoarse. Not without you and the baby, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I grabbed a rolling medical cart, wedged it under her bed, and started pushing with all my might toward the door. But it was no use. The shutters had sealed this room too. We were trapped. The clock on the wall showed 12 minutes until detonation. Through the reinforced glass of the door, I saw Elena. She was frantically working at a control panel, her face a mask of desperation. Our eyes met, and in that single look, I saw everything: the fear, the regret, the love. She mouthed 2 words. I'll never forget. I'm sorry. And then, the world exploded. My last conscious thought was to throw my body over Sarah, to shield her and her unborn child as the ceiling and a ton of concrete came crashing down around us. I woke up to the sterile smell of a hospital and the steady beeping of a heart monitor. I was surrounded by FBI agents, but my focus was on the woman sitting beside my bed, Elena. Her hand was resting on her own stomach, which now had a slight, definite curve. "The baby," I croaked, my throat raw. "Safe," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Sarah didn't make it, but we saved her son. He's in quarantine. The doctors think they can reverse the genetic modifications." She filled me in on the rest. Thorne had been captured in a secret tunnel, trying to slither away like the snake he was. The FBI had all of his research on Project Chimera, and were already developing a "But there's more," Elena said, her expression turning grim. Thorne wasn't working alone. He had backers, powerful people in government, and major corporations. "This isn't over, Michael. We won the battle, but the war is just beginning." I looked at my wife, this incredible woman who had outsmarted a monster, who had risked everything, who had lied to me to save the world. And I finally understood, trust isn't about never being deceived. It's about believing in the goodness at someone's core, even when you can't see the whole picture. The world will never know how close it came to the edge, but I'll always remember. Sometimes, the biggest lies hide the most important truths, and sometimes, taking the greatest risk is the only way to do what's right. The recovery took months. My physical wounds healed much faster than the psychological ones, waking up from nightmares. Hearing the echo of collapsing ceilings and Sarah's final screams became my new normal. But through it all, Elena was my anchor. Her pregnancy progressed, a living, breathing symbol of the future we had fought so desperately to protect. The FBI placed us in protective custody at a secluded safe house, a fortress hidden away from the world. Agent Miller, the man who had led the real raid on the facility, became our regular contact, a tether to the ongoing battle. "Thorne is singing like a canary," Miller told us one evening during his weekly briefing, his voice low and serious. "He's giving up everyone: senators, military officials, CEOs from 3 rival corporations. This goes deeper than we ever imagined." The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Project Chimera wasn't just Ether's twisted initiative. It was a joint venture between multiple powerful entities who called themselves the architects. Their goal was nothing less than global population control and the establishment of a new world order where they held absolute, unquestionable power. "But we have the vaccine," I insisted, clinging to hope. "Project Phoenix, we can mass produce it." Miller's face was grim. The lines around his eyes deepened. "We found something else in the data you helped recover, Michael. Thorne created a mutated strain of Chimera, one that the original Phoenix vaccine doesn't fully neutralize. He kept it as an insurance policy." The news felt like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that stole my breath. We hadn't won, we'd just delayed the inevitable. The clock was still ticking, louder than ever. Elena, however, refused to accept defeat. Her strength was a fire that never flickered. "Then we'll modify the vaccine," she said, her voice firm with resolve. "Michael and I developed Project Phoenix together. We can adapt it. We will adapt it." With the full backing of the FBI's resources, we set up a makeshift laboratory in the safe house's basement, working side by side with Elena, surrounded by the hum of government-provided equipment. Felt like a strange return to our early days. Together back when our love was new, our dreams were pure, and the world hadn't yet tried to tear us apart. It was during one of these late-night work sessions, hunched over sequencers and data monitors, that Elena went into labor. The baby was coming early. In an instant, the sterile safe house transformed into a chaotic, makeshift delivery room. A medevac helicopter was en route, but a severe storm suddenly rolled in, grounding all aircraft. We were completely, terrifyingly on our own. As Elena labored, a new kind of storm broke. Agent Miller received an urgent, encrypted message. His face went pale. "The architects know our location," he choked out. "They're coming." We have to move. Gunfire erupted outside, shattering the night silence. The safe house was under attack. We're not going anywhere, Elena gasped between contractions, her grip on my hand like iron. The baby is coming now. In that moment, there was only one choice I could make. I barricaded the basement door, shoving heavy equipment against it, while an agent with paramedic experience rushed to Elena's side. Upstairs, a fierce firefight raged. The sound of automatic weapons was a horrifying counterpoint to Elena's cries. Miller and his team were outnumbered, but they held their ground, their bravery buying us precious, agonizing minutes. In the dim, flickering light of the basement, surrounded by the terrifying symphony of both birth and battle, our daughter came into the world. She was perfect. As I held her tiny, perfect hand, a wave of love so powerful it hurt washed over me. I knew, with absolute certainty, that I would die to protect her. The modified vaccine, Elena whispered, her voice weak but urgent. Test it. Test it on her umbilical cord blood. I understood immediately. It was a terrifying gamble. If our daughter had been exposed to any trace of the mutated virus through me, this was our only chance to know if our new formula worked. It was our only hope. As the battle reached its deafening peak upstairs, I completed the test, my hands shaking. The analyzer word. Then, a single, beautiful color glowed on the screen. Green. Success. The modified Phoenix vaccine neutralized the mutated strain. We had done it. At that exact moment, the basement door burst open. Ispuneraun ready to fight. But it wasn't the enemy. It was Miller, bloodied, exhausted, but victorious. We've secured the perimeter, he announced, breathing heavily. Reinforcements are here. He looked from the crying newborn in Elena's arms to the positive test result glowing in my hand. A slow, tired smile spread across his face. Well, I'll be, he said, his voice filled with awe. It looks like we finally have our silver bullet. The aftermath felt surreal, like waking from a long, terrible dream. With Thorne's extensive testimony in our new, modified vaccine, the architects were systematically dismantled. Their vast network collapsed as arrests were made in dozens of countries. The world was saved, and it never even knew it was in peril. Elena and I were granted new identities through the Witness Protection Program. We chose a quiet life in a small town where nobody knew our past, where the names Michael and Elena were just whispers from another lifetime. Today, I'm watching our daughter play in the backyard. She has her mother's brilliant eyes and a boundless curiosity that reminds me so much of David, my murdered partner. She will never know the price that was paid for her safe, sunlit childhood. She will never know how close the world came to a permanent, silent catastrophe. Elena joins me on the porch, her hand finding mine, a simple gesture that says everything. Happy anniversary, she whispers. It's been 5 years since that night in the basement. 5 years apiece. 5 years of watching our beautiful daughter grow. The world has moved on, blissfully unaware of the shadow that once hung over it all. The vaccine we developed is now stored in secret locations around the globe. A silent guardian against a threat most people will never even know existed. I've come to realize that sometimes the greatest victories are the ones nobody celebrates. The battles are fought in shadows. The wars are prevented rather than won. I look at my wife and my daughter, at this simple, precious life we've built from the ashes of our old one, and I know the truth. Not all heroes carry weapons. Some carry test tubes. Not all battles are fought on fields, but in laboratories. And the most powerful force in the world is virus or a vaccinate. It's the love that makes ordinary people do extraordinary things. The end of one story is simply the beginning of another, and ours is just getting started.